Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. The train rumbled through the Kent countryside, fields of green rolling past the windows. A slender figure sat alone, hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. Caroline's heart raced with excitement and fear as she watched the scenery blur by. This weekend represented a huge step, her first time spending multiple days living fully as herself. Her friend Hannah had extended the invitation a few weeks ago. "Come stay at my cottage for the weekend. We'll have a proper girls' getaway." The offer was tempting, but terrifying. A whole weekend on Fem, out in public? What if people noticed? What if she couldn't pull it off? But Hannah had been so encouraging since they met at the trans support group. "You'll be fine, love. My village is quiet and my neighbors mind their own business. We can stay in if you're nervous." So here she was on a train to Kent, a small suitcase tucked under her seat. She'd agonized over what to pack, which outfits would pass scrutiny. Did she have the right makeup? Should she bring a swimsuit in case they went to a beach? In the end, she'd probably overpacked, but it helped calm her nerves to be prepared. The countryside gave way to small villages and towns. Caroline's fingers tapped an anxious rhythm on her thigh as the train slowed. This was her stop. She took a deep breath, stood, and grabbed her suitcase. The platform was mercifully quiet as she stepped off the train. Just a few other passengers, none paying her any mind. She let out the breath she'd been holding and made her way to the station exit. Hannah was waiting in the car park, leaning against her little red hatchback. Her face lit up when she spotted Caroline. "There you are. How was the trip?" She pulled Caroline into a warm hug. "Not bad. Quiet, thankfully." Caroline's voice was soft, still unused to speaking in her feminine register in public. Hannah helped load the suitcase into the boot. "Ready for a relaxing weekend away from it all?" Caroline managed a small smile. "I hope so. I'm still a bit nervous, to be honest." "You'll be fine, I promise. My village is tiny and sleepy. No one will bat an eye." As they drove through winding country lanes, Hannah kept up a stream of cheerful chatter about the area, pointing out landmarks and sharing local gossip. Caroline found herself relaxing incrementally, Hannah's easy manner soothing her nerves. The cottage was picture perfect, a cozy stone building with climbing roses framing the door. Hannah led the way inside, giving a quick tour. "Kitchen and sitting room down here. 2 bedrooms and bath upstairs. Make yourself at home." Caroline set her suitcase in the guest room, a snug space with floral wallpaper and a patchwork quilt on the bed. She caught her reflection in the mirror above the dresser. Short brown hair, minimal makeup, simple blouse and jeans. Passing, but only just. She smoothed her hands over her clothes, wishing she felt as put together as Hannah looked. "Cuppa?" Hannah called from downstairs. "Please." Caroline made her way back to the kitchen where Hannah was filling a kettle. "So, what do you fancy doing this weekend? We could explore the village, drive into Canterbury for some shopping, or just stay in and relax if you prefer." Caroline hesitated. "I'm not sure. What do you usually do?" Hannah smiled. "Well, there's a lovely pub in the village that does a nice Sunday roast. And Canterbury's got some great shops and cafes. But we don't have to decide now. Let's have our tea and see how you feel, yeah?" They settled in the sitting room with steaming mugs. Caroline curled up in an overstuffed armchair, cradling her tea. The familiar ritual helped settle her nerves further. "So, how's work been?" Hannah asked. Caroline grimaced. "Stressful. I'm still not out there, so I feel like I'm constantly on edge, watching every word and gesture." Hannah nodded sympathetically. "That must be exhausting. Do you think you'll come out at work eventually?" "I hope so. But the thought terrifies me. What if I lose my job? What if my coworkers react badly?" "Those are valid concerns. But remember, you have rights. And you might be surprised. People can be more accepting than you expect." Caroline sipped her tea, mulling it over. "Maybe. But for now, this is enough of a challenge." She gestured at herself with a wry smile. "And you're doing brilliantly," Hannah assured her. "Look at you. Out in the world, being yourself. That takes real courage. The rest of the afternoon passed quietly. They chatted, Hannah showed Caroline around the small garden, and they decided on a simple pasta dinner. As the sun began to set, Hannah suggested they walk down to the village pub for a drink. Caroline hesitated. I don't know. Isn't it risky? It's just the local, very laid-back crowd, mostly older folks. We can sit in a quiet corner if you like, might help you feel more comfortable being out and about. After some gentle encouragement, Caroline agreed. They strolled down the lane as dusk settled over the countryside. The pub was a quaint stone building, warm light spilling from its windows. Caroline's heart raced as they approached the door, but Hannah's reassuring presence beside her gave her courage. Inside, the pub was cozy and dim. A handful of patrons sat at the bar or at scattered tables. No one so much as glanced their way as Hannah led them to a small table in the corner. What'll you have? First rounds on me. Hannah grinned. Oh, gin and tonic? Hannah returned a few minutes later with their drinks. Caroline sipped hers gratefully, the sharp taste helping to steady her nerves. As they talked, she found herself relaxing, even daring to glance around the room occasionally. No one was staring. No one seemed to care that she was there. By the time they left, Caroline felt almost giddy with relief and the effects of the gin. That wasn't so bad, she admitted as they walked back to the cottage. Hannah bumped her shoulder playfully. Told you. Baby steps, right? The next morning dawned bright and clear. Over breakfast, Hannah suggested they drive into Canterbury for the day. We could do some shopping, have lunch, maybe visit the cathedral if you're interested. Caroline agreed, though her stomach fluttered with nerves. A busy city center would be a far cry from the quiet village pub. But she was determined to make the most of this weekend of freedom. The drive was pleasant, Hannah pointing out interesting sights along the way. As they entered the city and searched for parking, Caroline's anxiety began to spike again. So many people, so many chances to be clocked. Hannah seemed to sense her unease. We'll take it slow, okay? If it gets overwhelming, we can always head back to the cottage. They started with a wander through the high street, window shopping and people watching. Caroline kept close to Hannah at first, hyper-aware of every glance in their direction. But as the morning wore on, she began to relax. No one was pointing or staring. She was just another woman out shopping with a friend. They ducked into a few boutiques, trying on clothes and giggling over outrageous outfits. In one shop, Caroline fell in love with a flowy summer dress, but hesitated over the price tag. Try it on, Hannah urged. You deserve something special. In the changing room, Caroline slipped the dress over her head. The soft fabric settled around her, skimming over her curves. She emerged shyly to show Hannah. Oh, Caroline, it's perfect on you. You have to get it. Buoyed by Hannah's enthusiasm and her own reflection in the mirror, Caroline made the purchase. It felt deliciously indulgent and affirming. They stopped for lunch at a charming cafe, snagging an outdoor table to enjoy the sunshine. As they waited for their food, Caroline realized she felt normal. Just two friends having lunch on a beautiful day. The constant underlying tension she usually carried had eased. Penny for your thoughts? Hannah asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Caroline smiled. I was just thinking, this is nice. Being out. Being myself without constantly looking over my shoulder. Hannah reached across the table to squeeze her hand. I'm so glad. You deserve to feel comfortable in your own skin. After lunch, they visited the cathedral. Caroline marveled at the soaring architecture and intricate stained glass. In the hushed interior, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. As they left the cathedral, Hannah checked her watch. Fancy a drink before we head back. I know a great little cocktail bar nearby. The bar was stylish but relaxed, with low lighting and comfortable seating. They found a quiet booth and perused the extensive cocktail menu. Caroline opted for something fruity and colorful, while Hannah chose a classic martini. To new experiences, Hannah toasted, clinking her glass against Caroline's. Caroline took a sip, savoring the sweet tart flavor. "This is lovely. Thank you for, well, everything. For inviting me, for being so supportive." "That's what friends are for," Hannah said warmly. "I'm just happy to see you coming out of your shell." As they chatted, Caroline found herself opening up more about her fears and hopes for the future. Hannah listened attentively, offering encouragement and advice. "You know," Caroline mused, "I never thought I'd be able to do this. Spend a whole day out as myself in a busy city. It felt impossible." "But here you are," Hannah pointed out. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for." They lingered over their drinks, neither eager to end the day. But eventually, Hannah glanced at her watch. "We should probably think about heading back soon. Unless you want to stay for dinner in the city?" Caroline considered it. Part of her wanted to keep this feeling of freedom going as long as possible, but she was also tired from the day's excitement. "Maybe we could get takeaway and eat at the cottage?" "Perfect idea," Hannah agreed. They picked up Indian food on the way out of the city. Back at the cottage, they changed into comfortable clothes and settled in the sitting room with their feast spread out on the coffee table. "So, how are you feeling about the weekend so far?" Hannah asked between bites of naan. Caroline took a moment to really consider the question. "Honestly, better than I ever expected. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong, but it's just been nice, normal." Hannah beamed. "I'm so glad. You've done amazingly well." As they finished eating, Hannah brought up an idea. "There's a club in Canterbury that has a queer night every other Saturday. It's tonight, actually. Fancy going?" Caroline's eyebrows shot up. "A club? I don't know." "No pressure," Hannah assured her. "But it's a really accepting crowd. Might be fun to let loose a bit, dance, meet some people." The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. Caroline had never been to a club as herself before, but the day had gone so well. "Okay," she found herself saying. "Let's do it." They spent the next hour getting ready, Hannah lending Caroline some clubbing clothes and helping with her makeup. Caroline hardly recognized herself in the mirror. Smoky eyes, glossy lips, a slinky top that hinted at curves. The club was already buzzing when they arrived. Caroline clung to Hannah's hand as they made their way inside, the bass thumping through her body. They found a spot at the bar and Hannah ordered them drinks. "To trying new things!" Hannah shouted over the music, raising her glass. Caroline took a large swallow of her drink, hoping to calm her nerves. As they stood watching the dance floor, a tall woman with close-cropped hair approached them. "Hey there," she said, smiling at Caroline. "Haven't seen you here before. I'm Jess." Caroline froze for a moment, but Hannah gave her an encouraging nudge. "I'm Caroline," she managed. "First time here." "Welcome. Hope you're having a good time. Want to dance?" Caroline glanced at Hannah, who grinned and shooed her toward the dance floor. Heart pounding, she followed Jess into the crowd. At first, Caroline felt stiff and awkward, hyper-aware of her body. But as the music flowed through her, she began to relax. Jess was a good dancer, playful without being pushy. Soon, Caroline found herself laughing and moving freely. When the song ended, Jess leaned in close. "You're gorgeous, you know that?" A thrill ran through Caroline. "Thank you," she said shyly. They danced for a few more songs before Caroline begged off to get some water. She found Hannah at a table near the bar. "Having fun?" Hannah asked, eyes twinkling. Caroline couldn't stop smiling. "It's amazing! I never thought I could do this." As the night wore on, Caroline danced with more people, even venturing out on her own a few times. She felt beautiful, confident, alive in a way she never had before. It was nearly 2 a.m. when they finally left the club, giddy and exhausted. In the taxi back to the cottage, Caroline leaned her head on Hannah's shoulder. "Thank you," she murmured, "for everything." The next morning, they slept in late, both nursing mild hangovers. Over a brunch of strong coffee and eggs, they reminisced about the night before. "I still can't believe I did that," Caroline marveled. Dancing, flirting, just being me. Hannah smiled warmly. You were radiant. I'm so proud of you. They spent the rest of the day quietly, taking a walk in the countryside and watching films. As evening approached, the reality that the weekend was ending began to set in. I don't want to go back, Caroline admitted as they sat in the garden, watching the sunset. Hannah reached over to squeeze her hand. I know, but think of how far you've come in just a few days. You can take that confidence with you. Caroline nodded, trying to hold on to the feeling of freedom she'd experienced. Can we do this again sometime? Of course, Hannah assured her. Anytime you need an escape, my door is open. The next morning, Hannah drove Caroline back to the train station. They hugged tightly on the platform. Remember, Hannah said, you're amazing just as you are. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. As the train pulled away, Caroline watched the countryside roll by once more. But this time, instead of anxiety, she felt a quiet determination. The weekend had shown her what was possible. It wouldn't be easy, but she knew now that she could live as her true self. Step by step, day by day, she would find her way forward. Caroline settled into her seat on the train, her mind swirling with memories of the transformative weekend. The Kent countryside flew by outside the window, but her thoughts were elsewhere, reliving moments of joy, freedom, and self-discovery. She closed her eyes, remembering the warmth of the pub, the bustle of Canterbury's streets, the pulsing energy of the club. Each experience had chipped away at her fears, revealing a strength she hadn't known she possessed. The gentle sway of the train lulled her into a light doze. In her mind's eye, she saw herself twirling on the dance floor, laughing with newfound friends, simply existing as herself without constant fear. A small smile played on her lips. A bump in the tracks jolted her awake. Caroline blinked, momentarily disoriented. As reality settled back in, a flicker of anxiety tried to take hold. She was heading back to her everyday life. Work, neighbors, a world that didn't yet know the real her. But the panic didn't consume her as it might have before. Instead, she took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. The weekend had shown her what was possible. She might not be ready to live openly full-time, but she could carry this newfound confidence with her. Caroline pulled out her phone, scrolling through the photos from the trip. There she was, smiling with Hannah outside the cathedral, posing in the new dress she'd bought. Even a slightly blurry selfie from the club, her eyes sparkling with joy. She paused on that last image, studying her own face. The woman in the photo looked happy, comfortable in her own skin. That's the real me, Caroline whispered to herself. The train began to slow as it approached London. Caroline felt a familiar flutter of nerves, but she pushed it aside. She thought of Hannah's parting words. You're amazing, just as you are. As she gathered her things, Caroline made a decision. She wouldn't hide away again. Maybe she'd start small, painting her nails, wearing more feminine clothes on weekends. But she wouldn't deny this essential part of herself any longer. Stepping onto the platform, Caroline held her head high. The bustling station was intimidating, but she moved through the crowd with purpose. She was done shrinking herself to fit others' expectations. Outside the station, the city sprawled before her, full of possibilities and challenges. Caroline took a deep breath of the London air. It was time to start living, truly living, her life. She hailed a taxi, giving her home address to the driver. As they merged into traffic, Caroline allowed herself one last moment of reflection on the weekend. It had been a turning point, she realized. There would be difficult days ahead, no doubt. But now she knew the joy that awaited on the other side of fear. The taxi wound through familiar streets. Caroline's flat came into view, the place where she'd spent so long hiding. But it didn't have to be that way anymore. She could make it a sanctuary, a place where she could always be herself. As she paid the driver and gathered her luggage, Caroline felt a surge of determination. Tomorrow was Monday. Back to work, back to presenting as someone she wasn't. But it wouldn't be forever. she would find the courage to come out, to live authentically. Hannah had shown her it was possible. Caroline unlocked her front door, breathing in the slightly stale air of her flat. She set down her suitcase and walked to the mirror in her hallway. The person looking back at her was still the same on the outside, but inside, everything had changed. She smiled at her reflection, a genuine, radiant smile. "Hello, Caroline," she said softly. "It's nice to finally meet you." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of unpacking and preparing for the work week ahead. As she hung up the new dress, Caroline let her fingers linger on the soft fabric, a tangible reminder of the weekend, of the person she was becoming. Before bed, she sent a quick text to Hannah. "Thank you again for everything. You've changed my life." Hannah's reply came moments later. "You did all the hard work yourself. I'm just glad I could help. Remember? You've got this?" Caroline fell asleep that night with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, she truly believed she could walk it. As dawn broke over London, Caroline rose with a new sense of purpose. She dressed for work as usual, but added a small act of defiance. A coat of clear nail polish, barely noticeable, but deeply meaningful to her. On the tube, surrounded by morning commuters, Caroline held her head high. She was still in boy mode to most observers, but inside she knew who she really was. And someday soon, the world would know too. She walked into her office building, nodding hello to the security guard. Her coworkers greeted her with the usual Monday morning small talk. If they noticed anything different about her, they didn't mention it. At her desk, Caroline booted up her computer and began her workday. But as she typed emails and reviewed reports, part of her mind was already planning, researching companies with strong trans-inclusive policies, looking into support groups closer to home, considering how and when to start coming out to trusted friends. The Caroline who had boarded a train to Kent just a few days ago would have been paralyzed by such thoughts. But now, each small step felt like a victory. She had seen what life could be like on the other side of fear, and she was determined to get there, no matter how long it took. As the day wore on, Caroline felt the familiar weight of presenting as someone she wasn't. But now, that weight was tempered by hope. This wouldn't be forever. She had tasted freedom, and she wouldn't forget it. During her lunch break, she ducked into a nearby park. Finding a quiet bench, she pulled out her phone and looked at the photos from the weekend again. Each image was a promise to herself, a glimpse of the life waiting for her when she was ready to claim it. Returning to the office, Caroline felt a renewed sense of determination. She threw herself into her work with fresh energy. If she was going to transition, she wanted to be in the strongest position possible career-wise. As she packed up to leave that evening, her boss stopped by her desk.
"Good work today,"
he said.
"You seem, I don't know, more focused somehow. Whatever you did this weekend, it agrees with you."
Caroline smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through her chest. "Thank you," she replied. "I think I've just gained some new perspective." On the tube ride home, Caroline found herself studying her fellow passengers. How many of them, she wondered, were carrying secret selves inside? How many were on journeys of their own? Back in her flat, Caroline stood before her closet. She pushed aside the row of masculine work clothes, reaching for the back where she kept her feminine attire hidden. Slowly, reverently, she began to move those pieces to the front. It was a small act, but deeply symbolic. No more hiding, no more shame. This was who she was, and she wouldn't push that part of herself into the shadows any longer. She changed into comfortable clothes and settled on her sofa with her laptop. There was so much to learn, so much to plan, but for the first time, the enormity of the task didn't overwhelm her. She had taken the first steps. The rest would come in time. As night fell over London, Caroline felt a sense of peace settle over her. The weekend away had been more than just a break from routine. It had been a glimpse into a possible future, a future where she could live as her true self, surrounded by love and acceptance. That future wasn't here yet. There would be challenges ahead, difficult conversations, moments of doubt. But now Caroline knew, deep in her bones, that it was possible, and she was ready to do whatever it took to make that possibility a reality. She sent one last text to Hannah before bed. "I think I'm ready to start living." Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.